trying Hot Ones for the first time. You can literally order the wings from Hot Ones in New York City. I was a little scared, but mostly confident. This first classic chili maple hot sauce was good. A little bit hot temperature-wise, but not too spicy, and the wings were super crispy too. And next up was the garlic Fresno hot sauce, which I think was my favorite. It was delicious. It was like sweet and tangy and garlicky, and this is when my mouth started to tingle a little bit. Then I tried the Los Calientes Verde, which was probably my least favorite. It wasn't as spicy as the other two, and it didn't have a lot of flavor. But this Los Calientes Barbacoa is where things started to pick up. It just smelled painful, but it was actually like really delicious. It was hot for sure, but it also had a lot of flavor. And this Los Calientes Rojo was like the calm before the storm because my mouth was already burning, but this one was so sweet, and I think the sugar helped kind of mask the heat. And finally, the last dab. I used way too much sauce. I don't know what I was thinking or why I was so confident, but this killed me. It literally felt like the inside of my mouth was like eroding slowly, like just burning pain. Oh my God. I also got so hot, like physically, and then my eyes started crying. I couldn't even control it. And then my nose started crying, and then I started drooling. It was not pretty. But thankfully, I got their antidote, which is this apple fritter topped with sweet milk that is so thick and sticky. It like coats your mouth and just takes away all of the pain. And it's so fluffy too, with a little crunch and like the sweet chunky apples. It literally saved me. Oh yeah, I also tried their chicken sandwich. That was really delicious. It was like moist and tender with a little crunch, and the sauce wasn't too spicy, but it had a lot of flavor. And then it came with blue cheese for like some creamy tanginess, and the bun was really buttery. And that's all for today. Everything I ate at an African food festival. First, I had to try bofrot or puff puff, which are these freaking delicious little balls of fried dough that are covered in sugar sauce, and the outside is super crispy, and then inside it's so warm and fluffy, and it's just deep fried heaven. And then we went to this spot that had so much meat, and I just let the girl fill up a plate with like whatever she recommended, and she gave me this huge tilapia. And she smothered it in kachumbari, which is like this incredibly flavorful mix of tomatoes and onions and peppers, and it's like so tangy and sweet and like really refreshing. I'm actually obsessed with it. And she gave me this spicy like curry sauce for the beef that was so hot. Oh my God, it like attacks your mouth right away. And then I went to this Nigerian spot, and they were trying to convince me that their jollof is the best, and it was really good. It was so sweet actually, and like a little cinnamony. I don't know, but it had this kick at the end too. And these suya wings had like a heat that built over time. It really snuck up on me, like not too spicy at first, but then my lips started to burn. And finally, I tried this African catering company, and I had to get these stewed fried ripe plantains that were so sugary sweet and like so soft, just melt in your mouth. And their seafood mac had so much really tender shrimp, and the sauce had a lot of flavor too, and so much cheese. And of course, I had to try their jollof too, which was so much smokier and a lot spicier, honestly. It was a little softer. They were so different, but they were both so delicious. And that's all for today. Letting fate decide what I eat for a full day. So I decided to blindfold myself and scroll through restaurants and randomly pick one, and then randomly scroll through and order something. And literally for breakfast, I picked a $50 tender meal from KFC. And after tax and tip, it was almost $70, but it was so much food. And they gave me a big bowl of mashed potatoes and gravy, which is like addictively salty and smooth and fluffy. And their mac and cheese is a little plasticky, I'm not gonna lie, but it's still mac and cheese. Like, it's still delicious. Also, I ordered 6 different sauces, and they forgot them all. And the fries are just so mid without the sauce. They're like barely crispy, but the bucket was heavy. I usually get the bone-in chicken because the tenders aren't quite as juicy, but the 11 herbs and spices still add a lot of flavor, and the gravy covers a world of hurt. And of course, you gotta make a chicken biscuit sandwich. You gotta add honey for a little sugary kick, and then the biscuits are so buttery and soft, and you can just mix and match. Like, go wild. Add mac and cheese. You can add more honey or hot sauce or mashed potatoes. And then honestly, I wasn't hungry again till dinner, and this time I really wanted to just scroll and scroll past all the popular spots, and I literally landed on a birria taco spot, and I randomly picked their queso birria taco. This little guy was $7 though, like $7 for a taco, but it was pretty fire. The spicy sauce had so much flavor, and it was really tangy, and the birria was really juicy and tender. And they also had birria smash burgers, which had like a crispy smash patty and birria and melty cheese, and then you dip it in the consomme for even more flavor, like the crunchy onions and the soft buttery bun and the savory meat. It was so good. The fries were so crispy too, like beer battered vibes, and the burger sauce was super creamy. And that's all for today. Only eating Gordon Ramsay's frozen food for a full day. We went all the way to New Jersey for these, and for breakfast I had to start with fish and chips. I air fried them to give them the best chance, and then I added some salt because they looked a little bland. And hey, I mean, the fish was crispy and salty and pretty flaky. The chips had a little crunch too, but they definitely needed some sauce because they were pretty flavorless without it. And then I tried the shepherd's pie, which looked a little goopy, but it was super cheesy, and there was a good amount of meat. The mashed potatoes were a little watery, and the veggies were a little mushy, but I mean, the meat was decent. And then for lunch, I started with the lemon lemon caper chicken. And honestly, I liked the sauce. It was tangy and lemony, but the chicken was pretty chewy and it was just so salty. The lasagna bolognese was probably my favorite thing all day. It was giving Stouffer's in the best way, like lots of cheese. The meat sauce had a decent amount of flavor and a little sweetness, and the noodles were soft, but not too soft. Next up was the macaroni, which really did have so much cheese. Like, at least they're not skimping on the toppings, and I love mac and cheese. It's hard to mess up. It's just so rich, and the noodles weren't too mushy. Did it taste a little plasticky? Yes, but it wasn't bad. And then for dinner, I tried the mushroom risotto in this white wine sauce that looked and smelled a little off to me, but I mean, if you like mushrooms, like, it's kind of like rice cooked in marsala sauce, but wow, was it salty. And finally, this slow roasted beef cooked in a red wine sauce, and I had high hopes. Like, there was so much beef, but my goodness, it was chewy, just like really fatty, and again, so salty. And yeah, thankfully, that's all for today. Only eating donuts for a full day in New York City. I have been dreaming about this donut since I had it like 2 years ago. It has this house-made blackberry jam that is so tart and rich, and the actual donut is covered in vanilla bean glaze, and it's like the fluffiest thing ever. I can't stop eating it. And this is the most chocolatey donut I've had in my life. It's a double chocolate cake donut dipped in chocolate and then filled with chocolate pudding. Like, are you kidding me? And yeah, there's chocolate cake crumbs on top too. And this coffee cake one has coffee in the dough, in the glaze, in the mascarpone filling, like even in the crumbs on top. It screams coffee. It's intense. And of course, I had to visit my favorite bakery because their donuts are so fluffy and they come in these cute little cups, so every single inch is covered in sugar. Their flavors are insane too. This was a honey goat cheese and strawberry donut, and look at that river of sugary strawberry. And I think this was my favorite donut of the day. It had this crunchy, nutty pistachio cream and pistachio praline that had that distinct kind of like unique marzipan flavor that really balanced out the sweetness so well. And this passion fruit curd one was so tangy and tart, which just goes so well with like the silky smooth cream. And finally, I've heard great things about Donut Pub. They have so many really fun flavors, like a s'mores croissant donut. The chocolate kind of reminded me of Entenmann's, not super rich, and the actual donut wasn't quite as flaky or buttery as I'd hoped. The layers kind of stuck together and the graham cracker made it a little dry, but once I got to the marshmallow part, it was better. This maple bacon croissant donut was definitely softer and more buttery, but it still wasn't quite the fluffy croissant texture I was looking for, but oh well, that's all for today. Everything I ate at Madison Square Garden. So they had this food event where all the vendors brought out their craziest stuff, like a 1-pound meatball and a 5-pound hot dog. And honestly, this is the best hot dog I've ever had in my life. It was on this super crispy buttered Texas toast style bun and topped with sriracha and cheesesteak and these really crunchy, salty fried onions. And the hot dog was so juicy too. And I just have to get birria tacos if I see them. Okay, like it's a rule. And these were better than some birria tacos I've had at actual Mexican restaurants. Like the tortillas were really crispy and the consomme was salty and a little spicy. And there was so much tender birria and like really melty cheese. And these nachos were hilariously massive, but the shredded chicken guac combo was fire, and the chips were really salty and super crispy. And of course, I had to try the 1-pound meatball, and I also met Cheat Day Eats. She was so sweet, and oh my gosh, it was delicious, like a little spicy, kind of bouncy, and so much meat. And they were slicing the corned beef right there for these massive Carnegie Deli sandwiches, and when the mustard is this brown, you know it's gonna be strong, and it was intense, like kind of pungent and earthy and really spicy actually. I also tried their huge black and white cookies, which had that soft, fluffy cake-like texture with thick layers of sugary icing and like a hint of lemon too. And finally, a staple at any arena is chicken fingers, and they had a straight up bucket of honey mustard, which again was like so bright and tangy and just super strong. But yeah, that's all for today. Only eating Vietnamese food for a full day. This first spot had pho short rib grilled cheese, and it came with pho broth to dip in, and the bread was so crispy crunchy, and the cheese was so melty, and I had these yummy caramelized onions and so much tender, juicy, melt in your mouth short rib. Like, this is what my dreams are made of. I also tried these Vietnamese dumplings that are wrapped in banana leaves. They're called bun bok lok. I think that's how you pronounce it. And they're made with this like really tender, kind of bouncy tapioca and filled with shrimp and pork. And I added this chili sauce that was spicy. I also tried their stir-fried pho, which I've never had before, but the flavors were insane. Like so salty, savory with these like slightly bitter greens and juicy mushrooms and crunchy scallions. And this next restaurant is supposed to be like the best Vietnamese food in New York City. And I had to get their dai ya, which are these super crispy rolls filled with pork, and the wrapping is so thin and crunchy. It's like deep fried heaven. I also got their bun cha, so you put the rice noodles in the lettuce, and then you add some pork from the broth, and then you dip the wrap in the broth and like the crunchy lettuce with the soft noodles and the juicy meat. It's so good. And finally, what I was most excited for, the bun chung. So they're these super crispy deep fried rice cakes with ground mung beans and pork filling, and then you dip them in soy sauce, and it's like an explosion of salty, savory flavor, and it's like soft on the inside and then crunchy on the outside. And that's all for today. everything I ate at Halloween Horror Nights. I literally flew to Orlando just for this. Like, it's my favorite night of the year, and the food is wild. Like, look at this peanut blutter burger. It's a double smash burger with peanut sauce and raspberry jello, and then jalapeno bacon and cherry peppers. It's like so many flavors and textures. It's like nutty and sweet and spicy and cheesy, and the patties were actually really juicy. Then I tried this bright red Evil dog on a confetti bun. So it had Kool-Aid pickles, bubblegum mustard, and then these super crispy potato sticks, and I thought I would hate it, but I actually kind of loved it. The flavors weren't that overpowering, honestly, and I thought I was gonna love these sour apple funnel fries, but they were just too much. Like, the fries themselves were covered in sour sugar and then topped with this really sugary sweet apple pie filling and sour apple ice cream, and I think it was just a little too tart. But this popcorn chicken in a popcorn bucket was so cute, and it was tossed in this yummy, spicy Nashville hot sauce and then topped with creamy ranch, and it actually had some heat. Like, it was kind of delicious and really crispy. And finally, the Stranger Things Hellfire mini cake was layers of this really moist chocolate cake with mango cayenne filling, which was actually like really sweet and fruity, and it did have a little kick. Super interesting. And then the candied guitar on top was so cute. And then we did every single house but one, and my favorite were the Universal original houses. Like, Stranger Things and Last of Us were okay, but you can't miss Dr. Oddfellow and like The Darkest Deal, and Chucky was really fun too. And yeah, that's all for today. Only eating Halloween fast food items for a full day. I had to start with Krispy Kreme because they have Scooby-Doo donuts, and this Yeti cookies and cream one had like crunchy Oreos on the outside and then this super sugary Oreo filling. It could have had more filling, but that would have made it even sweeter, so I don't know, maybe less is more. And look at Scooby! I am such a sucker for their glazed donuts. They are literally perfection, and this one had so much of that orange cake batter buttercream, which again was just super sweet. And then this Mystery Machine one had chocolate icing and chocolate sprinkles, and it wasn't quite as sweet as the others, and the sprinkles added the perfect crunch. And then for lunch, of course, I had to try Burger King's new spooky ghost pepper item. So this ghost pepper burger had bacon, ghost pepper, cheese, and queso. So it was like super cheesy, and the spice was there. I mean, like, for a fast food burger, it was actually hot, which I loved. Like, it definitely had more flavor than a normal fast food burger. And the chicken fries are a classic. I'm not sure actually how hot they were because my mouth was like already all spiced up, but I added some buffalo sauce, and that gave it the extra little kick it needed. Honestly, delicious. And finally, I walked myself over to Dunkin' to try their spider donut, which was so cute. So it's a little spider donut hole inside of an orange glazed donut, which definitely isn't as fluffy or as soft as Krispy Kreme. And I feel like the munchkin was kind of cinnamony. Maybe my mind is just playing tricks on me. I don't know. And finally, I got the pumpkin spice latte, which was kind of average, I'm not gonna lie, but the whipped cream on top had cinnamon sugar, which was delicious. And that's all for today. Letting my mom decide what I eat for a full day. I flew home for the first time in a few months, and I got to spend the whole day with her. She was so excited. She and my dad made fresh squeezed orange juice for breakfast, which is so cute. And then we had a little juggling competition, which I lost, but that's okay. And my parents always like make a whole spread for breakfast. They love breakfast. Also, the orange juice was so sweet and so tangy and like delicious. And then look at how long these sweet potato fries were. And eggs are always a debate in our house because I like them a little wet and runny, but everyone else likes them well done. So y'all gotta vote in the comments on which is better. And then she drove me to some doctor's appointments, and she has a rule that you have to get ice cream after you go to the doctor because you deserve it. So we got the Cold Stone peanut butter cup perfection, and look at how smooth, and with the crunchy sugary peanut butter cups. Also, my mom has a chocolate addiction just like me. Anyway, then we went home and watched the sunset on the lake, and my dad made homemade hummus because my mom's been begging for it since she got back from the Middle East. She said you gotta add olive oil, toasted pumpkin seeds, and pomegranate seeds, and y'all have to try this. Like, the pomegranates add that sugary pop, and the toasted seeds add the perfect crunch. It's so good. And then we carved pumpkins, and I was wearing a Kiki's Delivery Service sweatshirt, so I had to carve Totoro, of course, and y'all gotta let us know in the comments which pumpkin won the contest. And then yeah, my dad made chocolate muffins for dessert, and that's all for today.